PFL buys Bellator. They plan of a mega event between company champions between all weight classes. Is this bad for the This is obviously bad for the UFC and Dana White. They missed big on tons of fighters from Bellator. PFL is also Saudi backed, and a lot of promotions now, including boxing, the Saudis have a hand in pretty much every combat sport now.
Almost every sport in general.
Because
we've seen
golf.
We've seen even soccer.
They
offered Mbappe almost $1 billion.
That's right.
It's crazy.
It's all over. According to Fight Matrix, 30% of this new roster combined is going to be in the top 25 in the world.
So what that's saying is every fighter they just welcomed in would be a top 25 UFC fighter.
Well, no, this is combining of their big ass roster now. It's going to be in the top 20. 30% of that roster
they just welcomed in is going to be top 25.
Well, that big roster that they have now, PFL and Bellator, 30% of that roster is going to be in the top 25.
Holy crap.
Yeah, and that's on par with the UFC now.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
So now what we're looking at, basically what you're telling us is the PFL and Bellator combined now is a much more formidable opponent for the UFC.
I think so.
Yeah, man.
I think
Dana missed it with that one.
Yeah, because they have Usman Nurmagomedov. Nurmagomedov. Dana White doesn't get it. Nurmagomedov.
And that's tough. Islam is still with the UFC. Khabib is still training him.
Yeah.
It's not. Obviously the UFC is still going to be around for a long time, but it is shocking to see because how these things work now isn't. We'll never see the UFC just go out of business, even if PFL is doing way better. What you'll see is the PFL and Bellator combined with the UFC.
Yeah, it's just going to be one big old thing.
Right, one day. And that's what we're kind of more looking at. And the concern isn't that that PFL, it's not that, that the UFC is not going to be the only fighting network anymore. It's more about how will this change the sport as a whole?
Yeah.
Talking about fighter pay and things like that. We know that fighters should be getting paid more.
Yeah.
We know that. And look at where boxing's at now. These guys, the best boxers in the world, they can fight one time a year and
they're set for life. Yeah.
Off of one fight in a year. And you just can't, you're never going to get the same boxers you did as whenever Julio Cesar Chavez and Mike Tyson and those guys, they were fighting for their life.
They were forced. I remember Mike Tyson having to fight.
And that's where it gets to be a touchy subject because nobody wants to be the one to say, yeah, we shouldn't pay fighters anything because they fight harder. But when we talk about what makes us love this sport, it really comes down to the everyman aspect. Every man can go fight.
Why does it seem like there's unlimited money for the Saudis?
That question, that's probably the oldest money, some of the oldest money in the world. This stuff the Saudis, and it's not just them. We bring them up totally, but they have large amounts of oil. That's where all their money comes from. And before that, there were riches before, but that's biblical stuff, and nowadays it's the oil. Yeah. So what you're seeing is also, it's not the same as how we have it set up here in free markets or in the U.S. or even in UK and those kind of places where average people have oil jobs. Over there, average people might have oil jobs, but they're not seeing the kind of money that we would see. No. All that money funnels upward to where these guys are giving out Bugattis, gold-plated Bugattis, as gifts for people that they're meeting for the first time, like a first impression kind of thing.
Yeah.
Their money's literally endless. That's all we know. And so if they want, that's why we've seen them dive into all these sports. If they want a sport, they're going to be able to get it. They're going to be able to pay them more. And And the sad part is, it's like the old saying, it's hard to run with heavy pockets. It's hard to fight. A hungry dog hunts better than a full one.
Yeah.
And that's why we would be disappointed if these fighters, if they're given hundreds of millions of dollars and
Yeah, it wouldn't
no
be the
one would
same.
be able to compete.
It definitely wouldn't be the same.
You wouldn't see any other fight organizations because no one can compete with that. Why would you ever go fight anywhere else if there's a place that you could potentially make $1 billion for one fight? Not every fighter would make that, of course, but your Francis Ngannou's, your John Joneses, you're talking like you're lucky to see them fight 3 times in their prime if they're making that amount of money. Sad.
Yeah. And that's just like Mike Tyson was fighting 20 years ago, 5 times in 1 week. He'd be doing it once a day for a week. And now,
Can you
20
imagine,
years ago.
Can you imagine fighting someone like that? Who just got done fighting someone a week ago?
I
And
swear,
he's not
yesterday.
even damaged. Yeah,
And
yesterday.
there's some where he's fought twice in one night.
It's just mind blowing to see, and we obviously don't want that.
No,
We want a
him to be
balance,
set.
and that's
Yeah.
what fans need to be speaking out about. Yes, we want fighters to get paid more, but do we want them to be, as wealthy as Jeff Bezos? No, I don't. I don't want to see that. I do want them to be able to provide for their families, and that is an incredibly dangerous and hard profession to do. They should be fairly compensated, but to the point where we don't get to enjoy the sport, that's it's sad to see. Is all I'm going to say. The state of boxing today is what we would head to, and that's a sad state.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how you want to put it.
That's what the Saudis want. I mean, they're putting their backs are around everybody, every sport. They're behind every sport.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not football. We're not. Or the
Football is just now getting to the world stage.
Yeah, it's a baby sport
Like
too.
Germany
That's
and
why-
London and France are just now getting into NFL. And the UK.
And it'll be Saudi back before we know it.
Before we know it.
We'll be having events out there.
Well, and you guys have to remember too, any sports, I'm going to tell you this right now, all sports, anything fun was started by the mob. So, take that, do with that information what you will. I do believe, I'm not one of those people who thinks all sports are rigged, because there is the undeniable flame of the human spirit that is inside of each one of those athletes, and nobody can predict what happens with that.
Mm-hmm.
But for sure, 100%, the mob is the ones who started every sport and everything fun, casinos, everything, drugs. So don't be shocked when you start to see more fishy outcomes. Whenever you got a very rich, powerful nation, you're not talking about a company anymore. You're talking about a nation, a family that rules a nation. Yeah. So don't be surprised if you start to see more fishy outcomes and such. Especially
since the WWE and Endeavor got together.
Yeah, no kidding. That's just it. It's almost like a slap in the face, like they want us questioning if they're going to stay legit or not.
Yeah. And then the WWE's pushing for you can bet on our events or our, and they know it's going to happen, but
right. And that's what we love about this sport, is that it is honest. It is unpredictable. Everything about it is amazing. And if any parts of those get destroyed or minimized, you're taking away from the whole. And that's our true opinion on that.
Yeah. But that was a pretty deep rabbit hole. Some of the fighters, we got heavyweights are all old and fat. I think the youngest one was like 30 years old, so nothing there. You could see Vadim Nemkov as the champion, so and you get a 46-year-old Yoel Romero too. So
Yoel Romero's gone, huh?
I'm gonna make like a top 10 video of the best fighters coming from Bellator over to the PFL.
And well,
something
really,
along those lines.
It's so hard to say, because if we do get a merger with PFL, Bellator, and UFC all under one company, it could be the best thing we've ever seen.
Mm,
It could be. The production could be through the roof. But the fact of the matter is fighter pay. We just can't have promotions like boxing does, where you're feeding guys journeymen.
yeah,
They get paid
just to build them up.
a piece of bubble gum and some coupons to Chuck E. Cheese to get their ass beat. That's just not what we want to see.
Yeah. Well, and they have to adopt each other's rules now.
Right.
Because the UFC, well, I don't know if the PFL actually
I
has
hope my
any.
mic was working the whole time. It was kind of.
Was it off?
It was in a precarious position.
That'd have been bad.
Well, we'll see on the video.
Yeah.
So.
But anyways, there's gonna be another video tomorrow for sure. And yeah, this is bad news for the UFC, especially MMA world. Still pretty bad news. The Saudis, they're all over us. They're all over us. They're blanketing everything. So.
Right. And that's the weird part. It may end up being better, but it does definitely scare anybody because we just don't want the UFC and MMA to turn into what boxing has turned into. It's disgraceful what boxing has turned into, really.
Yep. We're gonna cap it off here. We'll see you later.